everyone, welcome to Morning Laziness. This is Nilima KS, and today we're bringing to you an interview session with Dr. Jenelle Kim. Morning Laziness is an online magazine dedicated to women. It showcases various articles, personal life stories, and interview sessions on different matters concerning women. And today, our interviewee, Dr. Jenelle, is a doctor of Chinese medicine and educator of finding happiness by incorporating Tao philosophy and mindfulness into daily life through living meditation. Jenelle is devoted to integrating the philosophy, medical wisdom, and expertise of East Asia with the advancements of modern life and medicine of the West. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here and to see you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Actually, just after reading your mission statement, it seems like you aim to establish a beautiful bond between the two corners of the world, the East and West Asia.
Yes, and I love how you even say it in that manner. That's exactly right. It is definitely my wish to integrate the two together. I say I'm a walking example of that, given the simple but powerful fact that my father was Korean, my mother's American. Even to this day, that's not the common, to be honest, but what a beautiful thing to be connected to my lineage of formulas and philosophy that's been passed down, that's so deeply rooted, and then also have the ability to bring it into modern day and to understand both cultures to some extent. So I feel grateful, blessed, but also very driven to do so.
Right. And now, since you're on board with Morning Laziness, share a tiny glimpse of your ideal morning routine with us.
My ideal morning routine. So I have two young boys, a husband and my mother. So we're all together in a very traditional manner, if you will, given that my father passed away about 6 years ago. And so that is very much the way that we, have learned and understand in our culture. And I like to share that because I know that's not necessarily the most common thing in Western culture, but in so many other cultures that is, and I'm so grateful for that. And so my morning routine includes probably a few more people than maybe some. And that consists of me waking up, especially early, at least 15 to 20 minutes before my kids wake up to practice what I really enjoy at this point in my life, some form of internal martial arts, Qigong, Tai Chi, and meditation. It's just the way I like to start my day in a very grounded, quiet moment, which are not so easy to find. But as I speak of living meditation, carrying that throughout your entire day. And then I wake my boys up, feed them breakfast, feed my husband breakfast, check in with my mother. And I'm probably already started working, answering emails and whatnot by that time. So that's probably my morning routine in a nutshell.
That sounds a very family-oriented morning routine.
Yes, this is true.
Today, what did you have on your breakfast platter?
Okay, so here's an interesting thing. At this point in my life, and I say that because it has not always been this way. For example, when I was pregnant, I always made sure to have a healthy breakfast. It was important at that time. It's what my body looked for. But personally, I actually skip breakfast. I find that that's the most beneficial for my body. So some may call it intermittent fasting. I agree with the understanding and the principle of this. And that just means that I really don't start eating until noon. And my last meal is probably at around 5, 6 at the latest. So that's the way my body naturally feels the best. And anyone who knows me knows I love to eat. And I think I eat very balanced. I'm not one for, your diets. I don't find that that's the most balanced way for our bodies. Of course, each condition is different. And so, so on my particular breakfast plate, I don't actually have that until lunch comes around. But when 12:30 hits, I better be eating. And anyone who knows me that way knows that I will make it a point to go and have a proper lunch.
That is something really new to learn about you.
Thank you.
So lately, how did you put up with the pandemic around?
How did I put up with the pandemic? That is a good question. And, not a lot of people have asked me in this manner. Now it's been, I can't even keep track. I don't think any of us can, let's say about 2 years. And so when it all first started happening, I, like probably so many other people, even though we saw the signs coming, was a bit shocked that our world would go through such a extreme moment in time all together. I mean, what an interesting thing, right? And so that can be a whole other conversation. But for myself, I do truly practice living meditation. It is a part of my life, and how I have found has really helped me to balance so many parts of my life, both good and challenging. And this was definitely a moment where I checked into that. And so the way I would sum that up and how I look at pretty much everything in my life is that I see the situation in front of me and I visualize, basically, I've never really said it that way, but that's exactly what happens. I visualize what it is, what is my wish for the situation that stands before me? What would I like to achieve through this? And in that moment in time, I wish for the health of the whole world, especially my family, my loved ones. And I know very well that the way to do that is to remain as calm and as balanced as possible, because the second we stress, it can start to affect us mentally, physically, our immune system, our relationships, everything. And so at the start of that, I see my wish, what I wish to see at the end of this road, no matter how long or short. And then I take a moment, which I know is going to be a consistent practice, of how am I going to be in charge of and make correct choices to make sure that I'm able to live every single moment as balanced as possible, where I'm not reacting to things. I want to be responsive. I want to see things clearly. And that's really how I looked at the pandemic. And it ended up, as many of us, I have certainly heard, as I speak to so many people on a daily basis through messages or other forums, that many of us were able to take this moment and try to look for the very best things that can come out of it. And that was certainly something really important to me too, finding that gratitude and that spark that will get us out of those moments that can feel a little bit suffocating or exhausting or frightening. So that's what I did during the pandemic, and made sure that I was the best mother, business owner, wife, daughter, friend possible during this time, because that's what brings me joy. So
Right, true. And it's true, during pandemic, it has really when I took a moment to think, no matter how long this road might be, I should be able to handle it. And again, as by the news headlines every day, we hear about the COVID cases and the new Delta variants coming up. So it's again unsafe around, but we have to move on in life. We cannot stop. So yeah, that's true.
Yes, I agree with you. And yes, we do. We have to keep moving no matter what, and finding the most balanced way possible. And at the end of the day, it's our choice. It's our choice how we want to react or respond, and how we want to treat others, or how we want to look at the situation, and how we want to take care of ourselves. So it can be daunting, or it can be very empowering.
Right. Now, moving to some questions regarding your profession. Tell us something about Myung-sung.
Myung-sung is actually, I think I've already started, right? So Myung-sung is translated as meditation and living meditation. And so the fact that I have a book now coming out January 11th, which I'm so grateful for this opportunity through Watkins and Penguin Random House. The reason why I wrote this book, the reason why I wish to share Myung-sung is exactly what I'm speaking of right now. I look around and I see that every day there are so many people walking through a lot of challenges. Also, so many people walking through so many beautiful moments in life. So it's all facets of life. And I have been given this opportunity in my life, which I had a choice whether to take or not, and I chose it, which is that I come from a very long lineage of practitioners and doctors and philosophers of East Asian medicine and philosophy. And for the last 20 years, to kind of sum it all up, I really focused on medicine, wellness, truly doing my very best to bring the understanding of the East and West together, natural products, so on and so forth. So I'm very, very excited, deeply grateful to be able to now share the Eastern philosophy of all. I speak on the 3 pillars, which is medicine, meditation, and movement. And those 3 things, it is my deep understanding, belief, my mission, as has been passed down for so long, that if we're able to incorporate those things, which form of Myung-sung living meditation, we are able to live a healthy, happy, just fulfilling life. But we have to constantly keep all of those things in balance, and it's a never-ending cycle. And that's Myung-sung. It's basically 8 keys, which are ultimately the chapters that are broken down, and they're tools to help us look at every moment in our life. So as I mentioned before, I love my hopefully 15 minutes in the morning to have my meditation practice. I'm a strong proponent of techniques and different practices such as that to help us ground ourselves, become more aware, strengthen our mind and body, heart. But it shouldn't have to stop. It shouldn't have to stop when you stop that practice. It should keep going throughout our day. And that's what Myung-sung is.
Now, talking about living meditation, how does regular practice of meditation help one rebuild their perspectives about the art of mindfulness and life?
So your question was, how basically are we able to apply Myeongsang to our everyday life and our meditation practices? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, beautiful. So as I just mentioned, but I'll expand upon a bit, by the nature of being human, no matter what, no matter how well we take care of ourselves, no matter how well we eat, how well we sleep, and obviously I'm kind of forming an ideal situation, an ideal person right now, which is pretty difficult to do. But even if we were able to do every single thing that was good for us in a balanced manner, we still will always have to balance the good and the bad. By nature of being human, we have to nourish ourselves, but we also have to eliminate, meaning there's good things for us and there's toxins and bad things for us, right? The pollution in the air, the UV radiation in our food, on our skincare products, no matter what we do, we can't get rid of that. And the same thing goes mentally, right? So things are always, our mind's always working and figuring, and although our mind is so important, sometimes that balance between the heart and the mind can take over, and then that too can become imbalanced. And so by doing and practicing certain meditation practices, techniques, and through living meditation, furthermore, where we can take those habits, those tools, and utilize them throughout our whole day, we're able to balance with those things. So my point being, there's no such thing as being in a perfect state. The near nature of our entire universe, yin and yang, there's always the dichotomy, right? Of good, bad, day, night. So I think I'm getting my point across here. And so that is why these things are so important, why it's important to have certain practices that help us to live life and have a greater perspective and put ourselves in other people's shoes and look at the situation truly to the best of our ability in the best manner possible. And then also that goes into the way we take care of ourselves, our wellness, how we eat, the supplements we take, knowing ourselves well enough to know when something's wrong physically or even mentally, emotionally, right? And then movement is the other part. There I go back to the 3 pillars. There's certain actually meditation practices, the way I've been taught in my lineage, and goes really back to the traditional methods of internal practice, such as ancient methods, that is, of yoga, martial arts. It's a very important thing that even before you sit down to meditate, which I find not a lot of people are aware of, that you do some form of physical exercise first to connect the mind and body. So it's a pretty interesting thing.
That was a beautiful message. And it seems like living meditation is a practice that would help you filtrate the impurities that you are bound to fall upon by from the environment, and as I had mentioned about from the UV rays and from the chemicals and toxins around us.
Right. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And that's what I really hope to continue to share and educate to the best of my ability. Every day I'm still learning, but whether it's skincare and beauty, which, like I said, I've spent the last 20 years and I will continue to forever, as far as I'm concerned, just why doing these things can help us, from beauty to eating properly, to doing proper movement, to living properly, how they can truly just help us to live that much more of a balanced and therefore a happy life for ourselves and our loved ones.
That's great. And I found this statement on your official webpage. You believe in the statement that I am the custodian of the herbal formulations passed down directly within my family line for many generations. So how so would you like to put this into practice?
So ultimately, we're speaking on the fact that I come from a long lineage, as I also briefly mentioned, of practitioners of medicine for herbal formulations, proper formulations, which I speak of as like the perfect recipes. It's one thing to know herbal medicine and know each individual herbal ingredient and put them into a product or a formula to help ourselves. It's another to know exactly how those ingredients all work together, right? And so that's the ancient wisdom and knowledge that's been passed down in my lineage for centuries. And that is where I'm able to say at this moment in my lineage, which is, I have to mention, really important, that oftentimes we will say family lineage, but that doesn't necessarily mean family by blood all the time. There's certainly people within my lineage that were not by blood, but just as strong given the connection. And so that is what I mean by I'm a custodian. It's come down through the centuries from generation to generation within my lineage. And at this very moment in time, I am the custodian, I'm the guardian, if you will, of those formulas. And certainly I am, given the opportunity and so many different wavelengths and levels to be able to share them with the world in a really big way, which I don't know ever has been done before. And I'm pretty certain, in fact, I know that I'm the first woman to be the guardian and custodian of these formulations. So all of it, I'm just so grateful. And even I sit back many times to think about the situation that I am in and how how important that is to myself and how much that drives me to share. So
I like the notion that you took behind taking the initiative of becoming the guardian of your tradition and of your heritage.
Yes, I do too, Nilima. I think it's so important to stay true to our traditions and our connections to our ancestors. And I always say that, it's that word lineage means so much to me. One of the keys, actually, even in the book, and one of the very foundational principles is that we as human beings are so connected. We're connected to our universe, we're connected to each other throughout time. And that's such a beautiful thing. And my wish is to share the best I can, that it doesn't make a difference even what your beliefs are, your religion. You can enjoy and feel close to any part of that and it still stays true. Hence, it's a universal principle that no matter what, we're connected to something greater than us, even if you believe that that's nature. And I just think that that's a really important piece, when you really start to see yourself connected to your ancestors, to the next generation. Not only do the things for those who came before us affect our life, which clearly I take very seriously, but also we stop to think that whatever we do ends up truly making an impact on the generation to follow. We are now, we will one day be the ancestors. It just makes you look at life, at least it gives you the opportunity to look at life a little differently. So.
Right. You also happen to be the author of Myeongsang, the Korean art of living meditation. What would you like to share with your readers? Maybe a short synopsis would do, or maybe about your experience in becoming an author.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that, Nilima. I think I've covered some of it. So again, to kind of summarize, Myeongsang is living meditation. It incorporates the 3 pillars as I have been speaking of: medicine, meditation, and movement. And then it breaks it down into 8 keys or chapters that we can really incorporate into our life, such as key number 1, know yourself. Everything starts from within you, and that's such an important thing to understand. The ancient sages or teachers taught us that every answer we can find inside of us and around the world around us, the universe and nature around us. And that's a really powerful thing to start to understand, because so many people try to look outside of themselves for the answers. And really, you have to start from within. It has to come from you, no matter what. I'm not going to go through every key, but another really important one happens to be key 2, which is the true, right, correct method. And I use that word purposefully. I took a lot of time to think of the names of these keys to get them across as correctly as possible. But that's a way of zooming out, looking at changing your perspective and looking at a situation with a greater perspective, where you balance the true, which is how you feel about a given situation, with the right, which means basically almost like the black and white of the situation. If you were to stand in a huge room filled with people, what would most people agree upon? And then by combining those 2 things, you're able to make correct decisions and see things more clearly. So that's another of that key 2, true, right, correct method is a big part of Myeongsang. So as you can see, it's just ways to really change our life through different tools. And each key, it's really interesting, is going to mean something a little different to every person, because it applies to every single situation in our life. And that's living meditation. We don't have to stop and wait for moments where we can hopefully gain clarity because we have a moment of silence, because I know very well that finding those moments of silence and really sitting down and having all these proper techniques is not always easy to do. And certainly that should never stop us from achieving all that we can. And so that's Myeongsang living meditation. They're very practical methods that have been handed down from the most ancient of times, and have I always say, whether it's the formulas or philosophy, what makes something last for so many centuries? And it can be as simple as the fact that it works. It works. And it definitely has helped me, and I've seen it help so many different people, and that's why I wish to share it. And my road to writing the actual book, certainly was not, it was definitely one of those moments in life where I still don't totally understand what exactly it leads to. This is my first book after all. And so for anyone who's standing in these shoes, I know I love hearing that from first-time authors. It's a very different road. I walked down many roads unknown, but this is certainly on the top of the list. So, but a good experience.
I'm sure your synopsis would help our readers to get an outline of it. Now, what pulled you towards practicing Chinese medicine when there were other alternatives like Allopathy and Ayurveda?
Yes, that's a good question. The truth is, when I first started studying, I thought I was going to head down the road of Western medicine, right? So more conventional medicine. It was important to me. I knew that in some way, shape, or form, I definitely wanted to be a part of other people's lives and hopefully a very helpful manner. And I think the answer to this is it might be very straightforward, given the fact that I have come from this lineage, and it has been a part of my life since the moment I entered this earth, this world. It doesn't mean that I was so in my consciousness all the time. I didn't walk around, when I was little, thinking about the fact that this is such a big part of my life. But obviously, as we see in many ancient cultures, whether it be in India or East Asia, Southeast Asia, even in Europe, I see this basically cultures that have existed for a long time. These different practices, ways of eating, medicine, they exist. And so that's kind of a broader way of looking at it. For me, they very much existed throughout my entire life. And it wasn't until I was about 18, 19 that it really hit me. And there were some specific moments why it hit me so strongly that I realized, wait a second, I am in this very unique situation where I come from a very powerful lineage of people who dedicated their entire lives to understanding the human condition, so that even I can be sitting here right now and living in the best way possible. They dedicated their whole lives to that, and I'm a part of that. And so that's where it just started to kind of, hit me. Wake up, Jenelle. This is an incredible opportunity to help share this knowledge and this wisdom, which really 25 years ago, Nilima, this was still, people thought I was crazy, in the beauty industry and the wellness industry. They'd say, oh, Jenelle, that's really nice that you want to share Asian formulas, but I don't think people are going to get it. I suggest you stop, and it never really bothered me. It's too strong. Of course, there's a moment you're like, oh, I wish you could see this, but I felt so strongly about it that it's going to help people that I just kept kind of moving forward. And I'm grateful because now here we sit, in 2021, almost 2022. And I don't think there's another option, to be honest. Integrative medicine, the ancient and modern coming together, and people really learning to take care of themselves and being aware of their physical condition. So it's all pretty interesting.
It is interesting indeed. When you get that, when you're at the last moment, you feel like you want to change your route path or your choice, your profession. It is indeed different. And for me as well, I didn't want to end up being a journalist or being an aspiring journalist, but here I am. So it changes a lot. And again, with knowledge and with your age and with things you see around the world, your perspectives and your aims, your missions also change a lot. So I'm sure that must have impacted yours as well.
Yes, very much. I appreciate you sharing your story too, because I'm right there with you. This is not exactly what I thought I was going to do at the age of, 14, 19, 20. It keeps on kind of flourishing. So it's a good point.
You have expanded your professional life into entrepreneurship as well. What were some of the key challenges you faced when you began laying down the food stones?
Yeah, so it's a beautiful thing. It seems like our whole interview, we keep kind of leading up to the answers. We both just touched on it. I'd say the biggest kind of moments that made me stop, whether you look at them as challenges or later you look back and realize, wow, that is exactly, was in the stars, or it was exactly my wish and I didn't even see it. So the greatest kind of challenges, if you will, that I have come across in general are sometimes you set out, especially in my younger years, I'll speak for myself, but I think it's a common thing when you're first started, especially being a woman and a very often corporate type of situation that you're walking into with these natural, medicine and something that can be very foreign. There's a lot of people who want to say no, just like I said. There's a lot of people who might not understand. There's a lot of different ways. For example, when I first was in school or even finishing for my master's of Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, or traditional Oriental medicine, all of these are interchangeable. My wish was to have clinics just like my great-grandpa. In fact, my lab is named after him, JBK Wellness Labs. And that's my great-grandpa Jimbo. And he was an incredible practitioner, and I loved being in clinic with my patients. And I thought that's exactly what I do. Need in mind to have clinics, hopefully all over the world, and I'd be with my patients. And then look how life turned, right? And now I'm grateful. But in the moment, there were a couple tears as I knew, certain people kept kind of drawing out of me, if you will, certain formulas for skincare, for digestive system, so on and so forth, which I had seen my whole life growing up. But when I was about 19, it kind of this is a good example. I there was one person in particular who said, Jenelle, what these formulas are doing for people with troubled skin, you have to do something. And that's all it took me, Lima. And now all of a sudden, while I'm in school, wishing to be in clinic, thinking about my clinics, I'm starting to write formulas and make products. And then all of a sudden the life started changing. And had I not practiced living meditation and staying on principle and knowing that there's only so many doors of opportunity we get in this life, and if we pass them up or don't see them clearly, we may never even know that they passed us. And I'm grateful through these principles, through the way I was raised, that when those moments came, even though they may have felt very uncomfortable, I was able to zoom out, just like I speak of, kind of look at the situation. Okay, instead of me being basically stubborn and hard-headed, or as key 3 is called, stop being drunk in your own thoughts. There's a Korean word for it called dochi, which means you can be intoxicated on your own thoughts and they can harm your whole life because you can't see clearly, just as if we were fully intoxicated on alcohol. And if I would have let that take over in my mind, I would have fought the simple fact that life and the universe and everything we believe pushed us down this road of opening up labs and now having a book. And so I think that's the main thing. There's a couple examples, but it's so important for us to, even in the most uncomfortable moment where, because you don't know what the next steps are or how I'm going to get to my goal, you never let that stop you. You see that and you have to move with the Tao. You have to go with the flow, right? So
it seems like it was indeed a great challenge for you to overcome.
Yes, this is true.
And as the founder of the JBK Wellness Labs, how would you like to define the fine quality of your cosmetics and personal care products for our women readers?
Well, that's honestly my number one conversation is that is the most important. And of course, I mean quality of each individual ingredient. I mean quality of the formula as a whole. As I said before, it's one thing to put a whole bunch of actives and or herbal ingredients into a formula and call an active or herbal formula, which is the key, right? We all want something that really works and is effective and has active components. But it's very important to understand where those ingredients came from, how they were sourced, and then moving on from there, how they synergistically combine together to make a proper formula or recipe. So all of these things are so incredibly important because at the end of the day, we may just be putting whatever on our skin and on our face and on our body or into our body and not thinking of it. But over time, our body, it becomes not so easy for our body to balance anymore. And that's the key. So if we care about having longevity, if we care about the way that we look, if we care about feeling good, looking good, all of that, it really matters the quality that we put on ourselves, on our skin, into our bodies. So that's a main principle that the whole lab and our formulation is built upon.
Interesting. Were your road to success filled with humps, emerging as the creator of the world's first CBD luxury skincare line? How would you like to regard your journey?
Well, that was an interesting one, and another moment that we kind of speak of where I could have said no and passed up. And in fact, when basically the people who founded the entire industry found us. And that in and of itself was kind of an interesting thing. And I have to mention that that's one of the reasons I looked at the situation. What I mean by that is, as a lab, our partnerships are very important to us, and we don't just make products for everybody. And so we don't have signs up on our doors, now we've grown a bit, so we have to have a couple, but at that time, not many people knew where we were necessarily, our lab. And it was almost serendipitous that they somehow looked for me because they knew that we truly understand. And again, this is kind of the creators of the CBD industry. They knew we understood herbal medicine and they knew we understood formulation. And let me be very clear, working with cannabinoids is not very easy in formulation, that's for sure. Especially back then when no one even understood this ingredient and standardization was not even a thing, right? And so when they approached me, I said no at first. That's the truth. And because I did not know, even though I knew that hemp, right, cannabis and all the cannabinoids and everything that comes with that is one of the 50 fundamental herbs of Chinese medicine. I was very aware of the strength of this herbal ingredient. I didn't know where they were coming from. And I grew up in a pretty, academic, traditional type of background. So I was not about to be, the queen of cannabis, which I joke because I saw this a couple months later, little Google alerts were coming up and I was like, oh no, what's happening? But ultimately, in conclusion, I decided to move forward because I had a feeling, and look where we are, that this was going to make a huge impact on our world because I knew the strength of this ingredient. And I figured, I've been working hard for about, at that time, maybe 10, 12 years, really doing my best to educate on herbal medicine and the proper way of understanding it to the best of my ability. And why not be at the forefront? Because I know this is going to be a huge industry, and at least make sure that people understand and always remember what this herbal ingredient is. And I was correct that was important. And I hope that I made a big impact on, having it understood in the correct way in our world. So.
Right. At last, Jenelle, what helpful changes can your products bring to society?
Well, my goodness, I hope that they bring so much. Again, I make everything from, and everything, like I said, is based on proper herbal formulations. The products that we create for such amazing companies, because we're behind the scene. A lot of times we make products for the amazing brands that are out there that really resonate with the message and the ingredients. And that ranges from skincare products to internal supplements, tinctures, capsules, nutraceuticals. We're talking about super greens, your collagen powders, for example, which is a big thing right now, to body care, to muscle and joint care. So as you can see, because of the strength of these formulas, we can touch on so many different areas of the body, physically and mentally, because we're able to, with powerful ingredients and formulas, kind of help to rebalance even the way that we feel, right? And the way that our mind and brain functions. So I hope that through these formulas, my wish and what I am able to see every single day is that they are making a huge impact on the way people feel and how they live their life.
That was very beautiful. So by that note, we have come to the end of the session. And I would like to thank the audience for watching the entire session. Thank you so much. And Dr. Jenelle Kim, thank you so much for being patiently enough and answering all our queries. We appreciate your time and patience.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed our time together, and I hope that all of what we shared today can be helpful in some way.
Very true. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you. You as well. Bye.